Well, hey folks, this is Jennifer Latsky, and I'm over here in Colby, Kansas at the Northwest Research and Extension Center here in Colby, and I am with Jeannie Falk Jones.
I would tell you our crop conditions for wheat is a little bit all over the board. First and foremost, we've been having quite a bit of drought stress. And so while we have wheat that you can see behind me, looks kind of green, the other part of this is that we're seeing a lot of drought stress across the area. Even with these couple of showers, we started catching rain on April 25th. We've caught some little showers since then, but everything has been pretty dry for a majority of the growing season this year. Last year at wheat tour time, we did have a lot of moisture in the field. The problem is though, by the time we got to wheat drilling time, we did not have that available soil profile, especially in the top 3 to 4 inches, which is where we're putting our wheat seed. Because of that, it was dry conditions at drilling. We had pretty spotty stands in the fields across lots and lots of fields because the moisture, we just didn't have a lot in the upper portion of that soil profile. And so because of that, pretty rough stands, and so we were hoping for wheat to come up in the spring. We had some of that, but that also has its own host of challenges when you have wheat that comes up in the spring because it's already behind. We're relying on spring tillers. You need moisture to drive those spring tillers, and we weren't catching a lot of that either. So because of that, in general, I think our wheat stands are thinner than what we would really like to see out here. We actually have started picking up stripe rust here in northwest Kansas just in the last couple of days that I've been able to find it here on the experiment station in Colby and kind of across the area. So primarily when I've been out scouting for rust, specifically for stripe rust, I've been looking at the most susceptible varieties, and I'm looking at wheat stands that have higher yield potential, and most of those are a little bit thicker stand, and all of that plays a role in whether we're going to be seeing stripe rust out in the field. It's very interesting on Wheat Streak Mosaic this year because I wasn't doing a lot of discussing on Wheat Streak Mosaic until the last week or so is really when we have seen a pretty steady increase on the wheat streak that we're seeing out in the field. We're seeing lots of flag leaves show up as yellow, and in many cases it is not all across a field, but it may be scattered plants in a field, which is not typical for what we would expect for Wheat Streak Mosaic or the other two mosaics that kind of go hand in hand with Wheat Streak Mosaic, which is Triticum Mosaic and our High Plains Mosaic. And so we're seeing this kind of peaking up in the field right now. We're also just seeing higher volume of Wheat Streak Mosaic. And a lot of this, I think, is spring infections of the Wheat Streak Mosaic. It's not devastating many fields, but it's popping up in a lot of areas. You know, I think it's challenging this year because we're looking at our yield potential in some of these fields and wondering if the yield potential is high enough to justify the cost on a fungicide application. We're also looking at the forecast. And so right now we have moisture in the forecast for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so the question is, are we going to catch that? Because that's also going to play a role in one, in the stripe rust infections, and two, some of the yield potential that we've got out in the field. And so I'm really encouraging folks to do your scouting, really know what we've got in the field. The other portion of that is look to see how susceptible your varieties are, and then also prioritize those fields that have the higher yield potential and the most susceptible varieties. And what is our yields going to be? And I always laugh at that because I'm going to give you the typical farmer answer, and the extension answer is it depends. Are we going to catch some more moisture? Because if we do, then we're going to have hopefully moisture to help fill with grain fill and not be pushing this weed along as fast as it is. If it does not rain, we are pushing wheat pretty hard, and it is trying to get through its growth and development because those plants are stressed. And when that happens, that's going to push our harvest up just a little bit more than we typically would see. So there's two roads here of how we can move forward on how fast harvest is going to happen. And then on the question of what are our yields going to be, it's also going to be the question, is it going to rain? Because while we do have some profile moisture from the last few rainfall events that we've had, there's not a lot there to support a lot of the kernel development and actually filling those kernels. You know, the last thing we want are very shriveled kernels out in the field, but if we don't catch some moisture, we may be seeing some of that, especially in some of this more drought-stressed wheat.
Remember, folks, Follow along at Kansas Farmer on Twitter for updates from the wheat tour. This is Jennifer Latsky with Kansas Farmer, and we will see you on the road.